welcome to part 3 of rebuilding the Salvage 2021 Honda Ridgeline that I bought at Copart. I bet you thought I'd be further along than I am. I'm actually recording this in real time. Nothing is in advance. This was a very, very difficult section to graft onto the unibody. And some of y'all that watched the first videos might have known how difficult that was going to be. Some of you may not. I certainly did not. I was very confident going into it that I could weld this section on with very little effort. And I was wrong. First, I want to state this is not a how-to video. If you do research into welding on unibody chassis, you will see that there are very, very specific guidelines as to what metal you can weld, how you weld it, and things of that nature. Its safety concerns and structure is greatly changed by heat. And I don't know much about any of that stuff. I do know that it exists. And I thought that I was well within my ability to do what I was going to do when it came to welding in this section that I showed in a previous video. There's 2 other parts to this video so far if you'd like more information on what I just accomplished. It's very difficult to glean that information from the internet. I think it's guarded pretty well because, first of all, people just don't want you doing it, especially if you're not very skilled. And first thing I tried to do was just weld this together with flux core wire from Harbor Freight, which I've used in all kinds of different applications before with no problem whatsoever. And everything went together very well, except for this frame section, which I'll show you close up here in a minute. But this is the frame section, and I've got it turned around. It goes like this. When I welded around here and down on this little web, no problem, except the inner weld cracked. And I thought, there's something to this metal. It's not standard mild steel. And I knew that in the back of my head, but I wasn't thinking. Like I said, this is not a how-to video. Don't do what I did. I did not know what I was doing, and I cracked a weld, and I've never cracked a weld before, except in very large pieces of structural steel where it got so hot. So what I did was I ground it down very lightly and I tried to re-weld it. And I thought my problem was that it cooled too fast. It was -5 when I was doing this work. I didn't use any preheat and I didn't use any post-weld heat treatment. So I tried to preheat it, weld it, and then used post-weld heat treatment, which is basically keeping heat on it and slowly backing it off until it cools off. It cracked again. I did that a 3rd time. This time I laid welds across the section, and it took forever. Also, I did the preheat and the post-weld heat treatment. Then I ground everything down, and I thought for sure I had it. I came back out here the next morning, and it was cracked again. I was despondent at that point. Now, I like to be challenged. I like to learn. But after 3 times welding something, this is not very thick metal. You do not have room to play. You should not be heating and cooling this metal any more than you absolutely have to. That's in the Honda service bulletin on welding this material. Then it came to me that this was not regular mild steel. Not only was it heat treated, it was not mild steel. This is high tensile steel. I think this section around here is high tensile steel, and then this section here is a different kind of steel, or it has been treated differently. So this side kept cracking, whereas all the other sides are fine to the eye. I'm sure with x-ray and everything else, I'd probably figure out the entire weld was done wrong. But again, I felt like it was done wrong, but because it's triangulated, I thought I had a little room for error. I know they built it to be super safe, and I was happy with it just being safe. Now that was a bad thing to think. You should never do that. Just as a suggestion, I would say, don't do what I did. If you're going to replace this section, you should pull the engine and transmission and remove this entire frame all the way back to the firewall as a rule. But once I had this, so what I did was I figured out, let me back up. I figured out it was high tensile steel, which is low alloy. So then I purchased low alloy MIG wire. I ground it out, welded it up, no problem whatsoever. I was a little concerned because I had done so much welding to it. I decided to plate that side. I was not going to plate any of it. I didn't think it was needed, and I didn't think it was better. If I thought it was better, I would do it regardless of how much work it was. This was a lot of work to begin with. This was days and days by this point. Now, once I had done all that and I was extremely confident in the weld and the plating, I looked online again, and this time I searched for Honda high tensile unibody. And what I found was a diagram. There's a PDF online, and they have a diagram that shows you I think it's 8 different kinds of steel that are used in this unibody. And this particular frame has a rating, I think, of 580K. Now, that can be welded, it can be MIG welded, it can be butt joined with the proper welding substrate, the wire. I didn't probably have the exact one that they would have, but I feel a lot more confident in it than if I had found out that it was not to be welded absolutely at all. Now, you can go online and look this up. There are parts of this unibody that you cannot weld. You definitely cannot butt weld it, which is what I did. I butt welded a section of this so-called frame together. It's basically frame shaped, as you can see. This looks like a frame, but it's sheet metal that's been formed. Ultimately, they want you to tack weld everything, because tack weld is a very localized heat, and it doesn't affect the heat treating as much. Again, I'm not an expert. All I'm going to do is show you. I wanted to tell you how I went through the process of getting this welded. Okay? I can't film and do all this stuff. It's just me. I'm new to this. I'm not a YouTuber or anything. The only reason I'm making these videos is if somebody's interested in watching or learning what I have done. So I didn't film the process. I was focused on getting the process done, and believe me, for me, that was hard enough. It was not easy for me to get this done. And I wanted to be focused for safety and for strength of welds as I was welding, so I didn't film any of it. And I'm sorry if you want to watch DIY that shows you welding and grinding. I like to watch that stuff too, don't get me wrong, but I'm not there yet, so I apologize for that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I did, and where I am right now. And like I said, I'm totally confident in where I am right now. I also want to say thanks for watching the videos. I had a lot of people watch them. I've had a lot of people subscribed, and it means a lot to me. I'm a subscriber to many, many different channels. Some I don't even watch them when they come up, but it doesn't cost anything to subscribe, and it means a lot to the guy making the video. And any comments you want to make are appreciated. As a side note, there's a time I think Nirvana said Weird Al Yankovic asked if they could make a parody of one of their songs, and they considered that they had arrived when Weird Al wanted to make a parody of one of their songs. And I already have a hater, so I can say I've arrived as a so-called YouTuber to say that I already have a hater. And the guy basically, he was trying to be helpful, I would say, in telling me, I'm not going to tell you not to weld this because basically you're too stupid to listen to me. And, you know, on those lines, and it was extremely obnoxious the way he presented it. And there was some fact in what he was saying, and I know that more now. But I'm just proud to say I've got my first hater because he was so obnoxious with the way he was speaking. And it wasn't on YouTube that he made the comments. I posted my videos on a lot of different forums. I hope that doesn't bother people. I just want to put it out there. Not everybody's on YouTube. Not everybody's on Reddit. Not everybody's on the forums. So I think this stuff's interesting, and I couldn't find anything on this specific one. And there's a reason for that. You probably shouldn't do what I did. So again, it's not a how-to video. I'm just going to show you what I did. There's my joint and the plating. The paint ran a little bit, but I can live with that. The weld is quite strong. There's a bolt hole there. It was threaded for the battery tray. Now I'm going to cut out the bottom of the battery tray so or grind back that plate a little bit. And I left it there because I figured a bolt going through that plate is just as strong as any weld I could do. And I'm just going to cut out where that battery tray goes and remove the bolt. I'm not going to use the bolt that originally went through the battery tray. It has another thread over there, as you can see, and then it has 2 more on top, and 3 bolts holding a battery tray is more than sufficient. By the way, that's a very sophisticated battery tray. It has a box with a fan in it, and I think it even has a thermostat. So this is an extremely well-engineered battery tray, and I think it can live without 1 bolt. 3 should be adequate. Also, the air intake on this thing is extremely well engineered, and it's got to be to make it quiet. It's got a giant tank down here that it doesn't even draw air through it. It's just like a chamber for silencing, I think. And also, there's like giant weights that are mounted in various places to absorb vibration on this chassis, and they're on the subframe and on the motor mounts, and this is just a really neat truck. The engineering on it it's marvelous. I mean, you can literally marvel at it. So you can see there's a little seam on the top. It's not too bad. Again, I didn't want to grind any more than I absolutely had to, so I left a little bit of the weld. There's some welds there. Those were originally spot welds, but I decided just to MIG them. And there's another weld on the back side. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. There's a weld on the bottom as well. I can't get under there, but you can see that weld going down the side. That is not bad. I mean, you can tell it's there, but any other vehicle other than a Honda would probably have welds like that from the factory. There's a couple welds there. Those were tacks originally, and I MIG welded them. I didn't do any tacks. I decided not to. The MIG welding went so well, and it was before I learned that I should be doing everything in tacks. But again, I couldn't tack a lot of this stuff because you can't get the tongue of the tack welder behind it. So you almost have to MIG weld it. There's some more welds there on this side. One on the front. I didn't hit that with the grinder at all. I don't really think I needed to, but I can't see if I'm getting a good view of this. But there's a weld on the back side. And so that's it. The piece is in. I got it painted. This is acrylic enamel, Rust-Oleum, high gloss white, paint and primer combo. There's a couple more tack welds there, and a couple more there, one more there. There's a second one that I didn't do because I didn't think I needed to do it, but then there's another one on the top.